Welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to construct Power BI widgets. Check these out. A widget is an intentional organization of visuals seeming as though they're a single visual, highly interactive, and they just look great together. It's a skill every Power BI developer needs to know, and at the end of this video, you will know how to do it yourself. To stay up to date with more content like this and everything Power BI, subscribe and hit a comment back to me. I will always respond, ask any questions. And so now let's dive into Power BI Desktop and build some widgets. Let's go. All right, so here we are in Power BI Desktop. Now what you're gonna wanna do is go into the description of this YouTube video, get the link to the GitHub and download this file. You can follow along. You can have all the information and content. You can then build in these labs as we go through it. You will learn everything you need to know. Download and open this file. After you do that, come back. All right, so you're back. What I'm going to do is talk through this file and how to use it, and then we'll go through labs for how to build these, educating you how to create them. So firstly, what you're going to notice, again, here's our widgets. We're clicking everything. Everything's highly interactive. Months are changing. Days are changing. It looks awesome. And we're going to go through and build these things. So we're going to do 3 at a time, or I'm sorry, 1 of each of these. We'll do a lab for net sales, a lab for product segment, a lab for customer segment. And you can skip to the chapter as you want to see how each of these are created. And again, the goal of this video, widgets look awesome. And you need to understand the formula for how you construct them using your own data in any way you want. And after this, you'll be able to. It's a highly repeatable process. One thing you'll notice as well is that the canvas settings for this is slightly smaller, 500 by 875, just so we can see more and be more zoomed in. If you're ever curious to see what it kind of looks like just on a normal one, you know, they're smaller, they look good. They look, you know, like they fit. You could put a whole bunch of them, build all kinds of cool stuff. So in this case, we'll be zoomed in more so we can see what's going on through each of these tabs, but that's just something to note. Also, what to note is as we're creating these, I did pick out some color palettes that I like. So if you go into this file, go to View, Customize Current Theme, you'll see that there's a shade of blues, yellows, and greens. You can look at these colors, get the same ones as you see fit to use them. All right, so we're gonna start to build these suckers out, these widgets. Again, you will know everything you need to know about how to do this at the end of this, and you'll get some good tips for how to build them. They look pretty darn cool. So let's start with net sales. And what you're gonna notice actually is that for all of these, if you go to the selection, that they're intentionally grouped up. A widget is a collection of visuals. So what that means is that if I look at net sales, it's actually a status, sales status, text box, sales card, and shape. What does that mean? Well, let's look at it in even more detail. For this one, I'll delete these 2. We'll delete this one. We'll delete this one. And now let's start to unlock this thing. So what I'm going to do first is within this, I'm going to ungroup it just for the sake. Now in selection, we'll kind of work our way up by hiding all these things. So first we're going to have a shape, and then a shape, we're going to add a card. Then we're going to have a chart. Then we're going to add a text box for the title. Then we're going to add another bar chart. Then we're going to add a status, filter status below. And that's how you're going to construct it. Each one of these is a set of visuals. Let's just go ahead and go so you can see how these other ones will work too. We can keep that in the overview and then we'll get into the actual construction of it even more. So if I delete these 2, the product segment one, we will ungroup this one too. And it's going to be a selection of 3 visuals, a shape, a text box, and a 100% bar chart, and then a ribboned bar chart as well. Finally, the customer segment one. And again, the formula for these, as we go through this, you're going to get the muscle memory. You're going to learn how to build these things. But what's important is how you understand that it's a collection of visuals, but you have to just have some intentionality. And there's going to be nuances for how to make it fit a card. And I'm going to show you these things as well. If we go through this one, it's going to be a shape. net sales, male, female, bar chart, title. All right, so let's start. The formula for creating any kind of a widget is to first set the frame. And to do that, we're going to just use, the straight up rectangle. I'm going to insert a rectangle and make it the size that this box is. What I can do is over here, just to make sure the size is the same, 376 by 384. 376 by 384. All right, so we're dealing with apples and apples. One important thing is that it's a nuance, but just to have this rounded edge, there's a set of steps you have to do to enable that. So if we turn on the shadow, we'll come here, turn it on, check, it's on. We'll keep black, that's great. And now what we're going to want to do is for the actual visual border, we need to turn this on. And then you adjust the roundedness of the visual border to start to create this shape. And in this case, we're going to have the border remain the same color as this. We'll keep it as width 1. That's fine. But you'll notice that there's a white thing here. So that's because what we're doing is we're curving this shape out, and you'll see other visuals where you don't have this filled, or it will fill this. Again, these are small nuances. It's extremely important. So first hit that up, and then as you go to the visual, the background off, padding, visual border, we turn this on again, rounded corners, shadow on, now shape style. We're going to turn this border off, this fill off, and actually we can turn this on. And we're going to keep going through this process to create this. After we want to turn the background on. So we want this shape to not be white. We need it to be the theme color. And there you go. And actually what we can do is it's kind of redundant. And I'll make this clear again. We can turn this off. So ultimately what you need to do is under size and style, go to background, turn it on, visual border, and shadow. Turn all those things on. You're going to create a nice card. Okay. Now, for the placement of these things, a way that I like to think about doing it is the visual should have first a big call out value. So in this case, we're going to have that call out value from our data be net sales. And again, with this model of data, it's pulling in sales by customers and products over time. It's a standard data set I use that Microsoft provides, but it's good to work with. So you just click net sales. You're going to first get a visual. Well, let's change this visual to a card. And you'll see you'll have a card here. And this is where you start to get some art form to this stuff. So what we're always going to want to do is turn the background off. We don't want a background at all. And you'll want to start really tweaking some things here. So when you're creating KPI cards, you're going to notice that there's going to be a lot of overlap. Visuals are going to overlap, and then we'll eventually group them to make them unified. What that means is we need to maximize the spacing. So every time you're adding a new visual, always set this padding to 0, just so we can truly max out all the space that we have. And now we want to, after you max out the padding, we want to declutter how this thing looks. So there's multiple videos I have on formatting cards. We'll go through this specifically for this one. What we'll do is the label off. We want to minimize that. After you do that, you can move this up and kind of start to take some location here. What we'll do next is we want it to fit on the dashboard seemingly like it's one thing. So size and style, we have the background set to off, which is perfect. And there is something going on though with this where we're going to go to the card series card. And again, there's going to have to be nuances with visual. So I could tell there's a background. We're going to turn this background off, turn the border off. We just want a single number. Under the cards, you can start to turn those things off. Now under the card, we're going to go to the call out value. We want that to be white. And now we're starting to look like something here. We'll make it bold, similarly to that one. And finally, the value itself, we're going to adjust this by picking net sales. We're going to put the display units to none. Just keep it straight up like that. And now there we go. We have a value. Another thing you can do is with cards, again, there's a lot of formatting, but they have additional padding. So for this, we can go to custom and just decrease this even more. Remember, anytime you're creating KPI widgets is to decrease the padding as much as possible. And now, as we build these, we'll do some copying and pasting just to make things kind of go faster. But this first one's going to take a little bit more time because we're going to learn how to kind of build these things out. So next, what we want to do is insert a text box. And again, this is going to be a repeatable pattern. You create a text box. We're going to call this the title. Net sales. Well, what do we want to do? We want to set this to white. We want to set the background to none and then decrease the padding. Again, that's just going to be something you'll see we're going to be doing quite frequently. It's going to help keep everything very condensed and looking sharp. So now with this, let's see what I did last time. And I'll be going back and forth between these visuals too, just to ensure that the sizing is the same. So this is size 14 bold. You can choose what you want. You can pick what you want for your visual, like your tastes of everything. But some things that are going to be important as you'll go through this process are going to be this. The layering for how these things are all set up is going to be important. And it's always tricky. Sometimes these text boxes are tricky to move around. It's kind of strange. So let's just get this sucker here. Classic. Let's get this. That's getting annoying. Okay, so here's another trick you can do. As you're building these things out, again, you can see it. Sometimes it's hard to move. I don't know why, but text boxes can be just so weird to move sometimes. So what we can do is just use your arrow keys, or even just move this size and style up by going like this. Let's just reshape it a little bit, make sure we got it. I'll move it like this. You can bring it up to the top. There's lots of different ways to kind of go about these things as you see it. Now we have net sales. Let's go ahead and center it as well. That way we can put it right above the value. So the goal is we have a number, we have a title. Now we want to have a major content of every widget. As we go through these, you'll see some widgets are doing pie charts, some are doing time over trending. For this one, we're going to want to do a net sales, so you can have a bar chart. And again, the key thing for this formatting is we'll create it once, and then you'll start to understand how we can do it for everything. So you're going to make a new chart, net sales, and I want this to actually, sorry, it's not going to be net sales. In this case, it's going to be sales, because we're going to split it by sales detail, the status, legend, returned and sold. And then we're going to take this over time, date hierarchy, x-axis, and then we're going to change this visual not to a cluster, but to a bar up and down. And actually what we're going to do is, see how all these charts always come in with a lot of information on them? This is going to be part of that KPI kind of process to make things, in a different manner. And what we have here is another column, because you'll see that the red goes down. So there's a sales adjusted value. Okay. This is going to be the process you're going to want to do as you create KPI cards for charts. You want to just take off everything, even the legend, the title. And the reason why is because we're going to maximize how the bar chart looks and then add additional things as we need to. So the first, decluttering, turn off the title, turn off the legend, the y-axis, turn off the values, turn off the title, the x-axis. We will keep that because it is kind of important to label the months. So I want to keep that, but I'll make it kind of stand out with white. Again, nothing's there right now. Why? Because we have the background applied, so we want to turn that off. And now we're starting to get a visual here. So let's turn on the data labels as well. As we turn these on, you'll see it start to take kind of form and shape. We're going to turn the totals on too and put them above. But here's where we start to see some interesting stuff. So again, formatting these things to look good is the most important thing. So we're going to start with the idea that selling something is good for green, sold's green, returned red. And we're going through these steps fast, and that's why we're going to be building lots of widgets. I have other videos that really detail how to get into every nuance of these things, but as you're clicking through, just stop, rewind if you need to catch up on anything. So here's where some of the art comes in. We can see as well that there's a label there on the x-axis. We don't want that, so you really need to know how to manage these axes. But if we just fit anything into the page and we stay limited to that, you're going to see we're going to have all this dead space. So as we create any kind of charts, we're going to be extending it beyond the actual borders to fill up the space and really take shape of everything that's there, maximizing this as well. So as we do that, we start to see, all right, we're creating a whole entire card. Let's just make sure these labels, typically with cards as well, you want to have your data labels be set up in a manner where the value or the value right here is going to be like in thousands, something like that, and maybe decimal places. Sometimes you might want to do a 0. Keep it even more KPI card, which is kind of advised, versus this one of having the decimals. That number should be a little bit more high level with KPI cards. So we'll leave it like that. We'll make an improvement as we go about this process. And now, so think about telling a story. So we have net sales over time. We sold this much, we returned this much. Here's the total, which is why total labels are important. But maybe if I want to know what's the total sales, like we can't tell from this because it's showing everything per month just for the sales, or how much is the total returns. We don't know. We can't quite tell. So there's a couple ways we're going to improve this. So the first thing is we're going to add a filter at the bottom like this, where we can click sold and returned. And as we do that, it filters everything so we can just kind of focus on those numbers. It's nice, but then also this chart up here, which is going to be a clustered bar chart, is going to show the total. So let's build that first. So again, this is where you're going to get really in tune with visuals and thinking about space utilization. We want to fill up all the space. So we're going to do net sales. We're going to have the segmentation for this be, and in this case, we're doing actually total sales. And we're going to have the segmentation for this be the status. And we'll turn it on its side. So it's a side like this. So we have sold and returned. And now what you can kind of start to do to get it jump on something is pick a visual, go home, format the painter, click it. Boom. So as you apply things, these are the tricks you're going to want to know. It just assumes and applies most of what we've already done. So now we've jumped ahead. We have our bars here. Let's move them up to the top. So a couple of things for space. And again, all these tips are going to be important. So keep jumping through to obtain them. But first, what that is I don't want to define with these parameters or this space up here sold and returned, which is why it's intuitively down here, returned and sold, acting as a legend and a filter both. What we can do for this, we're going to keep cleaning it up. So the y-axis, the value's off. See you later. We also want to maximize the bar chart. So let's not have the value stick out at the end. Let's always control where that is by going to the value of this. We'll set it to white to keep it in fluid with everything else. And we'll move it, the location. We'll do display units. Actually, we could even do none if we want to get more specific, but I don't like it as much. We'll keep it 1,000 so everything's the same. And we'll actually, decimal places 0 to keep it the same. So now that we have that set up, we can start to kind of size this sucker up. And one thing you might notice is maybe you can't see a visual or you can. And one thing you can always do is come into modeling or home. Actually, it's going to be insert modeling view, help, format. This is it. Bring forward, bring backward. So bring to the front if you need to. and it's how you stack up the visuals. So for example, if I chose this to say bring to front, I pick the shape. Well, now everything's behind this card. We don't want that. So we actually want to reverse it. Go to format, send to back. And now we just sent that card to the back, and that's how that works, which is exactly what we want to do. So again, with the good thing about this is how we copy it and paste it. You'll see that the background's all set up. We can still remove the padding. But as we're having more and more visuals to this, we'll also notice that we can kind of control it a little bit more. So I'm extending this beyond. What we can do is click around a little bit. Oops, we saw the data label pops out. Let's change that. That's another important thing when designing these things. So let's go to the bars, the data labels, the series, the position, inside end. Now we have a fixed length this bar is always going to go to, which is how we can kind of control and ensure that it will stay on the page. Right there, you see things extend. And now we have a really good looking top section. I actually improved it by moving into millions, but to thousands. We have this. And what you can do as well is extend this beyond. Get it up here, get it even higher. And you want to overlap these visuals because that's going to fill up the whole entire card. Now, finally, if we want to interact with the filtering of it, let's add a filter too. And this is going to be the conclusion of this net sales card. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a filter, attribute status, and we're going to go to our visuals. We'll pick the new, actually I'll go up here and do it this way. From the filtering, the slicer, we want the tile slicer. Each of these things are tiles. Now, again, there's a lot of formatting you can do to set these up. So I will kind of start that process for us. I have a whole video around formatting slicers as well you can look into. So we'll go through this part. Again, let's find something we already kind of set up. And I'll copy the painter just to keep improving things. So we have some level here, but there's still some spaces. So let's start by adjusting the layout. We want to have only 2 columns. So we know it's sold and returned. And then as we adjust these things, let's start with the padding. So we want this to be custom. Again, take this padding all the way down to 0. We're in the card section or the buttons. And this is just incredibly important for both selected. And really what I need to do is change this to default, padding, custom. And you can see it moving over there, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Perfect. So that's going to give us the ability to kind of make these smaller. But now let's change the callout value. So when something's in default, we want this to be centered and we want the font to be a little smaller. We don't need it to be so big. 8. And now we want to have some space between these bars. So this is where it's really important. You can learn how to tweak out all of these visuals. And so what that looks like is if we have our layout, we can do space between buttons and maximize this. It goes all the way to 40 points. Click, 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 click. And now we've created some space here, which is great. We can shorten this even more. Returned and sold. And now, it's filtering, it's working. But how do we get it to where sold is red and returned is red and green? So you can't, with these, just set up the states. You can't just set the color. You have to create it dynamically. What I mean by that is with this fill, we'll turn off the border. We don't need that. We'll come to the color and we'll say a rule. If the, we'll go calculations. If the sales adjusted is, now here we'll do a rule. If it's less than 0, then make it red. We need to make this a number. And then if it's greater than 0, make it green. And so again, the sales adjusted, if it's negative, it's always red. If it's positive, it's green. Hit OK. Boom. Now we have that filtered automatically. Finally, what you can do is let's change that callout value to a different color. So we're flying through these things. You're going to learn a ton about just formatting visuals by watching this as well. Boom. All right, that one is good and locked in. Now we have a widget. After you create a widget, you always want to copy everything, and then you can group it up. So now what that gives is the ability just to move it around on your dashboard as you want to move things around as you're placing it, but it's going to be a collective visual. If you ever want to separate it, on the right-hand side, you'll see a visual. You can rename it, and I'll call this new net sales. Within that, I can see every visual. If I ever wanted to turn them on and off, you can see how these things stack up. It's pretty darn cool. You can just literally start to rebuild it, and you have your whole entire widget. Net sales built. Very cool. Now let's go to the next one. And again, the whole goal of this is with each of these visuals, you are going to have a deeper aptitude for how to construct widgets holistically and different kind of concepts. So again, this concept was big because it had the idea of a trending over time, filling up space with filtering. This next one's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to move this one. Just move it over to the side like we already did. In this case, we have all of our visuals here. So let's start. Again, we already went through the process of how to make the shape. So what I'm going to do is hide these things first because I want to get through the process for you. So what we can do is do the same process we did for a shape before, and this time I'm just going to copy and paste it. The previous one we went through how to construct it. So now we have a shape. The same thing with a text box. We're going to create a text box and put in the font. We did that last time, so we'll do it again here. I'll just copy and paste this time since we've already done it once. But this one I wanted to change it up. So instead of having it left justified, I filled the whole entire card from left to right to ensure that it's perfectly centered after clicking center. Just another way to put something in the middle. And now we're going to do this cool chart, which we're going to build because it's the first one we haven't done yet. It has some really cool nuances where the actual label, the goal is to turn visuals into legends as well. This is telling me Office 365 is gray, Power Platform is yellow, Xbox is green. It kind of shows through, which is really cool. It makes it clear. And then it provides the percentage of the product breakdown per net sales. That's a cool visual. Let me show you how to create that. So what we're going to do is go to sales. We're going to do net sales. And ultimately, you'll see just how much tweaking you need to do to visuals to make them look really good. We're going to have the product, and then we have category. So add category. So we're going to take this visual right here and turn it into this. How in the world are we going to do it? Well, let's just dive in. So first, we're going to move category to legend. This is going to create like a single value. Then we're going to make what's called a 100% chart. And that's going to be 100% stack bar chart where it essentially allocates each item into a bar. But now we need to set the colors of these bars. So first, let's do some of our formatting we've done before, where I'm going to hide this. This is some important formatting. It's just a cleanup. What that means is turn the title off. We're going to turn the legend off. We're going to do size and style. We're going to turn the background off. We're going to do padding. Set all these to 0. This is set to 0. You can start to kind of see how it will fit on there. Now let's change the x-axis. Declutter, turn this off, turn the values off. We're just making a bar. Like, always think of stripping everything down. But now we need to add some intentionality with the data labels. Okay, so there's a percentage. 40. How do we turn it into a legend though? Let's talk about that. So first, we're going to go to the bars. We're going to set each bar color. Office 365, I want to be this gray color. Power Platform, I want to be this yellow color. Xbox, green for Xbox. Now we have our colors. Okay, well that's cool. But how do we get kind of this background going and have a translucent actual representation of the value in it, like the word Power Platform? Again, next level kind of visualization creation. You're going to see these things in this video. So let's just do it. This is where it gets kind of interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the data label section, and we can actually turn on what's called a title. We're going to turn on the title, And boom, it adds the actual, you can choose, you can pick the series name, or you could even do a custom. If you want to put a custom title for each one, you can do that as well. But now we need to further enhance these things. And I'll show you how to get very granular with the data labels with this example, with the idea of making it see-through. So first, what we're going to do is add a background. So we're going to have the data labels. We're going to go to background. We're going to turn it on. In this case, we'll just kind of pick a percentage that feels good, maybe something like this. I made it black. You could actually make it the same color as the background just to get that even, kind of more matchy right there. But as we can see, it's not quite showing what we want to show. It's not quite working the way we want to work. So let's make some tweaks here. So the data values, let's change the title, make everything smaller, 8% or size 8. Let's also change the detail to 8. And we want that to be percent of total, but let's just have 0 decimal places. We don't need all the decimal places. So now how do we make this small tweak where it shows through? Well, this is a really cool hack. What you're going to do is go to the data labels. Then for every series, we're going to go to Office 365 for the title. Set the title to be the same color as the background. That changes. We're going to Office 365 Power Platform, the title, change this one, and then Xbox. These nuances are important because we want our visuals to look good, and you need to know how to do these subtle tweaks to make them look good. Now that's shown through. Here's another example of overlap. You'll see just tons of spacing here. So let's maximize this bar, move it up, kind of use your arrows to dial it in. And what you'll see, to whatever liking you, however you want to have it, it's taking up a lot of space, and that's okay. That's the goal of it, because we're going to have these things overlap. But now we have a visual. It's going to filter per section as we need to, working with everything. That's very cool. Very good, very good, very good. So now let's come back to this card, or let's go back to our selection, and let's turn on the other items. Oops. So I'm going to just make sure everything's on. And the final item for this card, we always want to have a widget to have, a couple of items on it. We can actually come back to this real quick and update this just to have the font match exactly, keep things all in line. As you click this, we'll go to data labels. I can just tell by looking at it, I think the value size is actually a 9. Yep, it's a 9, and the title, we'll put that at a 9 too. Maximize space, maximize size. Again, change it as you see fit. But now, how do we make this cool chart? Again, I'm going to show you, because this is a new one. So we'll be able to copy some of the stuff we've done, but we're going to still have new things. What does that mean? All right, this is going to be the net sales trending over time. So if I click Office, I can see the net sales going over time, etc. It's going to keep evolving. Now, what we're going to do is have sales, net sales. Again, this is a crash course in building all kinds of visuals. It's going to be quite helpful for you. Date hierarchy, drill this thing up, all the way up, and then come down, turn this off. Cool. And in this case, we're going to remove the day and the quarter and the year. Maximizing size, we just wanted to have the same bars. So then let's go ahead and we'll pick this one we did a second ago and format the pane or copy paste it. So we have somewhat of a similar thing. Again, it's not quite what we're wanting yet, but we're going to get there. So actually I'm going to undo that because I just don't even like how it did that. We'll keep it kind of more, in line with this version here. So I'm going to turn the title off. If we start to move it over, you can see that other things are happening. So I'm going to come remove this. Size and style, turn off the background. We're going to declutter it. Again, it's all about turning off the clutter. Y-axis, turn off the values, turn off the title. And now when we're looking at a chart like this, the X-axis, we're going to want this to be white, smaller. Move it up here, you can kind of see. So here's the cool idea. We can see the Power Platform is up, it's down, it's moving. To create this kind of sweeping motion, we're going to do a couple of different things. So we have the net sales. Then we want to segment it by the category. We want to have everything being similarly solutioned. What I mean by that is now we have these bars, but again, it is so hard to see what's going on. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to declutter even more. We're going to come to the legend, turn this off. We don't need the legend because it's there. Secondly, let's get the color so we can at least start to see what's going on here. The columns, we want Xbox to be that green color. We want Power Platform to be the yellow color. We want Office to be that gray color. So we start to see some things, but it doesn't quite look right. Well, that's because the axis is all sorts of wonky because one value is negative. So it's something to look at. You have to make the decision sometimes to say, I'm going to hard code this thing to not be negative. Boom, by changing the axis. These are all the formatting things you need to understand. How do we make it look even cooler? We can do this. As we've created a legend, they released a feature not too long ago where you can go into the columns and actually the series will pick all. And after you pick all, you can go to the layout and you can do what's called a series explosion and turn this on, max it out, and it separates all these things. But then we want to have, say, the largest value on top so things can move around. So we'll do sort by value. And now we can see the biggest value on top. Maybe you want to have it reverse order where the biggest value is on the bottom. You can do that as well. We'll change it up. That kind of makes sense too. But then after you separate it, you can add ribbons. And that just kind of helps track what's going on. Match the series color, make it more transparent. So it's kind of loose and floating. Okay, cool. So now we have a widget that's showing this over time. Let's expand this so it kind of overlaps as well. But now it is tricky to fit data values into these smaller things. So what we can do is, in this case, you have to look at the widget itself and decide, I need to maximize space, so I'm only going to add, say, like a total. We'll do this. We'll make it white. And the position, display units, we'll keep it in the thousands like we were doing before. Decimal places, we'll do 0. Make it a little bit smaller. But what you'll see is that sometimes it overlaps like this. So a way you can kind of make this look cool, I'll do it even differently than over here, is by going to your data labels, your total labels, turning on the background, but set the background color to the same color that the item is itself, and then start to add some transparency. So we'll just kind of color it in as needed when things move around. And now you've built a whole KPI visual that does product segmentation. You have a bar, and again, we want to see how these things work together. You're going to pick, say, a month. You can see the segmentation. Maybe you just want to see Office 365. Everything changes. So this is a good way for how to use a 100% bar chart with a ribbon chart through a series explosion to make this KPI. Very cool. All right, now let's go ahead and knock out this last one, which is another extremely valuable one. It's customer segmentation with a pie chart. And these things are kind of important because for formatting, you'll see there's just a lot of real estate that needs to take up. It's a good tip for how to build these things. So we have customer segmentation. What I'm going to do is the parts that are new, that we've already done, I'm going to copy them so we just keep things flowing. What that means is that I'm going to hide all these things. After you create it, of course, you can always select it, and you'll want to group it just to make it into an official KPI. Finally, we're going to take this next one, copy it. Boom, we have our shape. Now let's turn on all these other things. We'll see what we're dealing with here. We'll turn the shape back on. Okay, so first with the title, we've already gone through how to create these titles. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and move it over. Thankfully now they're moving. For some reason they weren't before. You can always tweak it. Use your arrows to really just kind of put it on the corner where you want it to go, maximizing space. And we already did a segmentation of the bar chart. So from this one, it's the same exact deal where we're exploiting the series, making a customer segmentation. So I'll copy this visual as it's the same thing we just created with just different colors, 21 to 31. It's the same process we did, stacked up, segmented. But this is where now we're going to tweak out the pie chart, because the pie chart in this case is going to be new. And so this is a key thing when creating pie charts. Again, a value of this widget creation video is you're going to see that we want the legend to actually be a KPI card that makes this up within a pie chart. So first, if we just try to say sales, give me the net sales and separate it by gender. And in your data model, you might be wanting to analyze things by different attributes. So that's what you can do. But we create a pie chart. And so we need to go from this to this. Again, that's another huge point of this video, how to do this formatting. So first, we want to get rid of a lot of things. To do that, I'm going to come back to this. We're going to get rid of the title. We're going to get rid of the legend. And we're going to put this background, turn this off so we have just a visual. Now let's start with some colors so we can just get the concept for what this is going to look like by going to the slices. We'll have male be this blue, we'll have female be this pink. Okay, cool. Now, how do we make this sucker fill up more of the screen? We want to think about really maximizing this. So what we're going to notice first is that, just so we can see, let's go to the detailed labels, the values, put these to white. It's giving me a lot of information. So when you see things that are kind of giving a lot, let's try to see how we can use more space. So as a principle, I'm going to break this out to just keep the percentage on the ring and then move the values into a KPI in the center. So here's how that will work. I'm going to change the label contents to just be the percent of total. I'm going to do the display units to be none, percentage 0. So it's just a clean 31%. And then we need to understand the placement. So I want these to be inside, always inside. Now you can see it's going to add the background. So you have some coloring over that, which is very nice. Background, we'll just turn it on so it's always there. And we have that set up. But now we need to figure out how to maximize this sucker up even more. So to do that, you can start to move it around, but I'm going to want to put things inside. So to do that, we can go to the slices, the spacing, inner radius, and actually just increase this, making a very thin circle. You can dial it into what you think visually suits you, and then start to move it. So I'm going to move this a little bit this way, this a little bit this way, and you really want to start resizing things. Again, this is where visuals are all overlapping. We're taking up as much space as possible. And that's intentional because then as we click this, it's going to filter and move things around. It's going to act as a filtering card. It's very, very cool. So we have this, but then how do we get the card? Well, all this is going to be is the same thing we did before where you can add a visual, add the net sales, and then turn it into a card like so. But we just want this card to be filtered specifically for a certain item. In this case, we'll have it be male. So to do that, we're going to put the gender as a filter and put it to male. Now we have our number. We already did the KPI card formatting. So the key thing, the one tweak for this is that we're going to turn the title on. We're going to call this title male. We're going to put the background color to be the color that we want to act as a legend, and then be set with all that. What we can do then after we have that is it's essentially the same process we did before for the KPI of stripping out everything. Since I've already done that, I'm going to come here, format painter, copy and paste it. Now we have this visual, and you can see we can shrink it down and have it fit into your circle. After you do that, that looks pretty darn cool. Then you can copy it and paste it, have it again right below itself. But this one, we'll just update this to be the other value, and we're going to change the title to be female. And then the background color to pink. And we can also change the text color subtly to change it to red, maybe a darker red. Boom, and you create another KPI. So you now know how to make widgets. This process is repeatable. The goal of this was to go through these steps. It's really limitless. It breeds creativity. It allows you to create anything that you need from a customizable perspective. Think about, as we look through these, overlapping visuals to tell a concise story. Always make sure to strip things down, taking off all the stuff that usually comes with visuals, tweaking them to be intentionally designed for the card with the idea of each one telling a story around a set of attributes that are shared. Now with this, go build some widgets. Get into your data. You'll be equipped to build widgets. Subscribe, follow, like. If you have any questions around this whole process, leave a message, send me a note. I'll be happy to respond and help. You all have a good day. Take care. Bye.